Hey there, welcome back to another peaceful evening together. Tonight, we're embarking on a tranquil journey through the ancient stories and historical context of the Bible, traveling across thousands of years of human history, faith, and tradition. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I create here. And if you'd like, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining our quiet community worldwide. Now, dim your lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations. You've just awakened in the ancient Near East, thousands of years ago, where our story begins. Imagine the quiet crackle of a fire, the rustle of linen robes in the desert wind, and the hush of stars stretching across the sky, untouched by modern light. The desert surrounds you. It's not empty, it's ancient. And in this stillness, something stirs. You're not in a hurry. You've arrived at the edge of a very old story. Tonight, we're not chasing answers or trying to solve anything. We're here to walk slowly with a man named Moses, man with no home, yet tasked with leading thousands to one. You may know of the miraculous the plagues, the Red Sea parting, but tonight we ask, what came after the drama? What filled those 40 long years of silence, waiting, and wandering? Why did it take so long to cross a desert that should have taken weeks? What were the Israelites supposed to learn in all that waiting? And more gently, what can that teach us as we lie here tonight, still and open to wonder? This is not just a story of movement. It's a story of stillness, of repetition, of not knowing what comes next. A story of people who woke up every day with the same questions we often do. Where are we going? Why is this taking so long? And most of all, are we still being guided? Tonight, let your mind drift alongside theirs. You don't have to stay with every detail. There's no test, no pressure, no need even to finish the story awake. Moses wasn't just a leader. He was a reluctant prophet, a man shaped by frustration and fatigue. And yet, every morning, he rose to lead again. Maybe because he believed, or maybe just because it was the next right thing to do. Something is comforting in that. We don't need to have it all figured out to keep walking. We don't need to feel brave to be on a journey. Sometimes, simply staying with a story is enough. So, as we begin, I invite you to soften. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts become lighter. And know that here, in this space, it's okay to let go. Because now, the sand is under your feet. The stars are above. And somewhere in the distance, the soft sound of footsteps begins as Moses leads his people into the unknown. Before we follow Moses into the wilderness, let's first understand the world he came from. Ancient Egypt, majestic, powerful, and deeply spiritual. The year is somewhere around the 13th or 15th century BCE, depending on which historian you ask. It's a time when pyramids already tower over the sands, when the Nile gives life to a civilization obsessed with order, tradition, and gods that number in the hundreds. Pharaohs ruled with divine authority. Their word was law, their lineage acred. And within this golden empire lived a people who were not free. They were the Hebrews, descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Over time, their growing numbers caused fear in the heart of Egypt's rulers, and that fear turned into oppression. They were enslaved, tasked with hard labor, building cities like Pithom and Ramses under the scorching sun. And it's in this crucible of labor and longing that a child is born. Moses. His mother, desperate to save him from Pharaoh's decree that all Hebrew baby boys be killed, hides him in a basket and places him on the Nile. He floats quietly into the arms of Pharaoh's daughter, who raises him as her own. And so, a Hebrew boy grows up in the house of Egypt's king, never quite belonging to either world. Moses would grow into a man of conflicting identity. One day, seeing an Egyptian strike a Hebrew slave, Moses acts out in anger. He kills the Egyptian and buries him in the sand. When word spreads, he flees to the land of Midian, a desert region far from the palaces of his youth. There, among shepherds, he begins a quieter life. Years pass. Moses marries, tends sheep, and perhaps starts to believe his story is over. But then, something extraordinary. On an ordinary day, in an ordinary place, he sees a bush of flame, burning, yet not consumed. From this fire, a voice calls his name. Moses! Moses. He approaches, barefoot and trembling. God speaks to him, not through thunder or war, but through fire that stays. A symbol of presence that does not destroy. God tells him, I have seen the misery of my people. I have heard their cry. I will send you to bring them out of Egypt. Moses resists. Who am I to lead? What if they don't believe me? I'm not a good speaker. But God assures him, I will be with you. And so, reluctantly, Moses returns to Egypt, not as a prince, not as a warrior, but as a prophet. He confronts Pharaoh again and again. Let my people go. Each time Pharaoh refuses, Egypt is struck with plagues waters turned to blood. Darkness falls at noon. Frogs and locusts invade, and illness spreads. With each plague, Egypt crumbles a little more, and Pharaoh's heart grows a little harder. Until, at last, the final plague, the death of every firstborn. And in the darkness of grief, Pharaoh relents. The Hebrews flee hurried, frightened, but free. They take what they can carry. They leave the only home they've known for generations, heading toward a land they've never seen. Moses leads them, guided by a cloud in the day and a pillar of fire by night. But freedom isn't easy. Soon after, Pharaoh changes his mind and chases after them. The Hebrews find themselves trapped between Pharaoh's army and the Red Sea. And then, the miracle you may have heard about since childhood, Moses lifts his staff, and the waters part. They cross on dry ground. And as the Egyptians pursue, the waters return, closing behind them. Now, they are truly free. But now what? What lies ahead is not a swift journey into paradise. What lies ahead is wilderness, vast, empty, unknown. The people who cried out for deliverance now cry out for food. The people who followed with trust now grumble with doubt. They've escaped the chains of Egypt, but the habits of slavery, the fear, the dependence, the disbelief take much longer to leave behind. The desert, unlike Egypt, offers no guarantees. There are no towering structures, no irrigated fields, no routine. Just open space, blazing heat by day, and freezing silence by night. For the Israelites, this transition is not just physical, it's emotional, spiritual, and cultural. They are no longer slaves, but they are not yet a nation. Their habits were shaped by centuries of oppression. In Egypt, life was harsh, but at least it was predictable. Out here, even the days blur together, one foot in front of the other, not knowing what tomorrow will bring. And Moses, what must he have felt? A man once raised in royalty, now wandering with a crowd prone to panic and complaint. Every time the people are thirsty, they look to him. Every time they are hungry, they turn to him. Every time they are scared, they blame him. And yet, he carries on. Why? Perhaps because he trusts the voice that called him from the bush. Or maybe because deep down, he understands something important. Transformation takes time. Before people can enter the promised land, they must first unlearn what it means to be enslaved. They must learn trust, patience, community, and most of all, faith in what they cannot see. This is the true beginning of their story and of ours. So, as we pause here, just before the first true steps into the desert, imagine yourself among them, tired but hopeful, unsure but moving forward. The sky is wide, the air is still, and the journey is just beginning. The sea has closed behind them. Their cries of Egypt fade into the distance. For the first time in generations, the Hebrew people are free. But freedom is not the same as peace. Freedom is not the same as direction. And so, with the salt air behind them and the desert ahead, they begin to walk. They are walking into the unknown. Their destination is a land promised to their ancestors, a land flowing with milk and honey. But there's no map, no deadline, no guarantee of comfort along the way. They move forward on faith, led not by roads but by a presence. By day, a cloud hovers before them, soft and slow-moving. By night, a column of fire stands tall, warm, and steady. This is how God chooses to lead them, not with words, not with armies, but with light and shadow, signs that invite trust. The people are many men, women, children, animals, carts full of what little they were able to carry. Some are old and weary, others young and frightened. There is awe in their eyes, but also uncertainty. How long will this journey take? Where will we sleep? What will we eat? Not long into the journey, their first real fear takes shape. Thirst. The desert offers no rivers, no fountains. They grumble to Moses, "Did you bring us out here to die of thirst?" Moses, once again, turns to God, and in response, he is told to strike a rock. He does, and from the stone, water flows. A miracle, but also a test. Would they learn to trust? Soon after, hunger arrives. The people again turn anxious, remembering the food they left behind in Egypt, even if it came with chains. And again, God provides. In the morning, a strange white substance appears on the ground, fine as frost. They call it manna, meaning, what is it? It tastes like wafers made with honey. Enough appears each day for everyone, and none can be saved for tomorrow except on the Sabbath. It's a daily rhythm of trust. Every morning, a quiet reminder. You will be provided for, one day at a time. And yet, despite the provision, the people complain. Old fears return. At times, they long to go back to slavery, to the known, even if it was painful. Change, after all, is frightening. Moses bears their frustration. He prays often, pleads often, and walks alone often. Leadership, especially in uncertain places, is lonely work. At the foot of Mount Sinai, something powerful happens. The people camp at the base of the mountain, and Moses climbs alone into the cloud that rests on its peak. There, in solitude and thunder, he meets with God. He receives more than instruction, she receives a vision of a people not just wandering, but belonging, a law that would shape their identity. The 10 Commandments, simple, powerful words meant not to bind, but to free. But while Moses is gone, the people grow restless. They melt their gold and shape it into a Kalfa god they can see, touch, name. It's not just rebellion. It's fear trying to find control. When Moses returns and sees the idol, he is devastated. The tablet stone inscribed by God's own hand are shattered. There is punishment, yes, but there is also mercy. God does not abandon them. He renews the covenant. He gives Moses the laws again. The journey continues. As they move forward, they begin to form a new rhythm. A tabernacle is built a portable sanctuary, rich in symbolism, a way for God to dwell among them. Each tribe has a role. Each day has its routines. And through this structure, a scattered crowd begins to become a people. But the lessons are slow. The journey is not linear. Doubt still surfaces. Fear still speaks loudly. And always, Moses stands between the people and their doubts. Not perfect, not always patient, but faithful. He intercedes. He listens. He leads. This is the Exodus, not just the moment they left Egypt, but the long unfolding of what it means to truly be free. It's not just about leaving behind what enslaved them. It's about learning how to live without chains. As they continue on their way, the desert becomes both a test and a teacher. There are no shortcuts, no highways. Every lesson is learned on foot, slowly, through repetition and reflection. Sometimes they walk for days without change. The scenery doesn't shift. The silence stretches. The children ask the same questions. The elders retell the same stories. And still, they walk. They are learning what it means to rely on something bigger than themselves. They are learning, painfully and beautifully, that even in the absence of clarity, there can be presence. That even when they don't know the destination, the journey matters. There are times when they face enemies, small kingdoms that fear this growing group of wanderers. And each time, they are reminded they do not walk alone. Victory doesn't come from numbers or weapons, but from the quiet, unseen hand that has guided them from the beginning. At night, the fire burns above them, steady and sure. During the day, the cloud shields them from the harsh sun. These are not just signs, they are reassurances. You are seen. You are not forgotten. And so they journey on, not just toward a place, but toward a promise. One slow, sacred step at a time. Maybe tonight, as you listen to their footsteps and feel the quiet rhythm of their path, you can take comfort too. In your own journey, whatever desert you're walking through, know this: you are not alone, and you are not lost. In the wilderness, time stretches. There are no calendars, no cities, no clocks ticking loudly in the background. The days blend, the horizon never seems to change, and yet everything is changing. This is where the Israelites lived for 40 years. Not camped in one place, but always moving. Not lost exactly, but not yet found. It's here, in this long, quiet space between Egypt and the Promised Land, that they become something new. They are no longer slaves. They are not yet settlers. They are wanderers. And wanderers, more than anything, must learn patience. The wilderness is not gentle. It is hot, dry, unforgiving. The sun burns down during the day, and the cold bites at night. Food and water are not guaranteed they come by miracle, by divine provision, and always just enough for the day. Every morning, they gather manna. Not too much, not too little. If they hoard, it spoils. If they doubt, it disappears. So, they learn slowly, stubbornly to trust. And when they complain again, as they often do, Moses listens. Sometimes he pleads with God. Sometimes he rebukes the people. Always, he returns to his role, the bridge between heaven and earth. One of the most significant moments comes early in their wandering. Mount Sinai. There, thunder cracks and lightning dances across the mountain. Smoke rises, and the people stand back in awe and fear. Only Moses climbs into the cloud. He is gone for days. And the people panic. In their fear, they do something that will echo through history. They built a golden calf. It's not just rebellion, it's nostalgia. They want something familiar, tangible, and visible. They want a God they can touch, one they can decorate with their earrings and mold with their hands. When Moses returns, he is heartbroken. The tablets engraved by Godare shattered in his fury. The calf is destroyed, and the people are reminded this journey is not about going backward. It is about moving forward, even when you cannot see what lies ahead. Still, God is merciful. Moses climbs again. New tablets are made, and a covenant is renewed. This is where the instructions for the tabernacle come. A portable sanctuary, beautiful and specific, where God's presence would dwell among them. It is made with gold, fine linen, acacia wood, and care. Every thread, every measurement, every object has meaning, because in a land without temples or towns, they would carry their sacred space with them. Around the tabernacle, the camp is arranged. Each tribe has a place, a formation, order from chaos, and so the wilderness becomes a classroom, a place where obedience is learned not through ease, but through repetition. The people are tested again and again. They grow thirsty, and Moses draws water from a rock. They tire of manna, and God sends quail. They fear for their lives, and God provides victory. Each crisis is followed by mercy, each doubt by reassurance. But it's not without struggle. Even Moses struggles. There's a moment when the people cry out for water again. God instructs Moses to speak to a rock. Instead, Moses strikes it twice. Water comes, yes, but so does consequence. For this act of disobedience, Moses is told he will not enter the promised land. He will see it from a distance, but not cross its borders. It's a moment of grief. For Moses, for the people, and for us, because even the most faithful leaders can falter. Even the ones who speak with God face disappointment. Still, Moses walks on. Still, he leads. There are other stories in this time, moments of rebellion, like Korah's uprising, when leaders challenge Moses' authority. Moments of healing, like the bronze serpent raised on a pole to cure the people from snake bites. Moments of discipline, like when a generation is told they will not enter the land because they doubted. And then, there is the giving of the law again, not just once, but twice. Once at Sinai, once near the end of the journey, in Deuteronomy. The commandments are not just rules. They are a vision, a way to live, to treat each other, to remember where they came from, to stay rooted in who they are, even when they reach the land of promise. Throughout all of this, the presence of God remains, guiding, providing, correcting, staying, and slowly, the people begin to change. The generation that left Egypt starts to fade. Their children rise in their place, born in the wilderness, raised in tents, used to movement, trained by trial. They are different. They are ready. Almost, but not yet. Because the wilderness still has one final lesson, that even when the land is near, you must still walk toward it with trust. And so, they journey on. Imagine the daily rhythm of life in the wilderness. The camp wakes with the first soft light of dawn. A trumpet may sound from the center where the tabernacle stands, calling the people to gather. The tribe of Levi, tasked with the care of sacred things, prepares for another day of service and duty. Families stir in their tents. Children emerge, sleepy-eyed, chasing each other between the rows of the camp. Elders sit quietly near small fires, telling stories of Egypt and promises yet to be fulfilled. Each day begins with gathering manna, quiet and humble work. The dew dries, and the fine white flakes lie across the ground. Some people gather joyfully, others with fatigue. But all depend on this mysterious bread from heaven, act of divine care that must be received, not stored. Then come the lessons some spoken, others lived. Moses teaches the laws he has received, not all at once, but little by little, justice is taught through real disputes. Mercy is modeled in how the community handles failure. The Sabbath is kept not just as a rule, but as a rhythm of rest, a reminder that they are more than what they do. There are festivals too, moments of joy, music, and reflection, feasts to remember their deliverance from Egypt, offerings to atone, to give thanks, to celebrate the cycles of life. These traditions begin in the desert, rooted in scarcity, yet pointing to abundance. The wilderness also teaches through the land itself. The silence is long, the stars are clear. Without distractions, the soul becomes visible. Pride, fear, impatience, they rise to the surface. And there, they are met not with rejection, but with refinement. Sometimes, the cloud lifts. That is the sign, time to move. The entire camp, hundreds of thousands, begins to disassemble. Tents are folded, animals gathered, and belongings packed. The Levites take down the tabernacle with care, each part carried in a specific order. A march begins, slow and solemn, led by the Ark of the Covenant. And when the cloud settles again, they stop. They set up camp again, in the same formation. The center remains sacred, and life continues. Over time, people change. Where once they panicked at every hardship, now some begin to trust. Where once they doubted Moses, now many begin to respect him not because he is perfect, but because he is steady. This transformation is slow, and not without loss. Some cannot let go of Egypt. Some resist the shaping work of the wilderness. And one by one, that generation passes away. Yet, a new generation is rising. They are children of the desert. They do not remember Pharaoh. They have only known freedom, movement, and faith in what they cannot see. They grow up watching the fire at night. They memorize the commands. They learn how to pitch tents and trust God. Their leaders are trained under Moses, Joshua, Caleb, men who saw the giants in Canaan and still believed. As they near the end of their journey, Moses begins to prepare them. He tells the story again, not just history, but identity. He reminds them of who they are and whose they are. He repeats the commandments, blesses the tribes, and prays over the people. His voice is older now, his strength thinner, but his spirit resolute. He knows he will not enter the land, but he also knows he has done what he was asked to do. The wilderness has shaped him too. From prince to fugitive to shepherd to prophet, Moses has walked with God and with a people through every emotion a soul can feel. Frustration, awe, grief, joy, loneliness, hope. He climbs Mount Nebo, where he will see the land with his own eyes. And from there, his story ends not in failure, but in fulfillment. Because the story was never about reaching the land. It was about becoming the people. The wilderness is not a detour. It is the path. And maybe that is true for us as well. In our own seasons of waiting, of wondering perhaps we are being shaped too. Not forgotten, not delayed, but prepared. Prepared to love better. Prepared to lead with humility. Prepared to trust what we cannot yet see. So, as this night deepens and your eyes grow heavier, imagine the fire flickering above your tent. Feel the hush of sand beneath your feet. Hear the soft breathing of those who, like you, are learning to trust. You are not lost. You are becoming. And that, too, is holy. Let the story rest with you tonight. Let the dust of their journey settle gently on your heart. You are part of something ancient, something still unfolding. And even here, even now, you are exactly where you need to be. 40 years. That's the length of time the Israelites spent in the wilderness. not by accident, not because they were bad at directions, but because they needed it. The desert wasn't just a backdrop, it was the refining fire. It stripped away everything they thought they knew. It dismantled the mindset of slavery. It rebuilt their identity from the ground up. But why 40? Why so long? 40 is a number you'll see again and again in the Bible. 40 days of rain in the flood. 40 days of fasting for Jesus. And here, 40 years of wandering. It's not random, it's symbolic. It represents transformation. A generation is about 40 years. Enough time for one group to pass and another to rise. And that's exactly what happens. The generation that left Egypt, with its memories of brickmaking and backbreaking labor, doesn't make it into the promised land. Their children do. Children born under open skies. Children who've only known freedom, even if it's hard. Children raised not by pharaohs, but by fire and cloud. Their parents, though rescued, still carried Egypt inside them. Fear, doubt, grumbling, a tendency to look backward when the present feels uncertain. And when they were given the chance to enter the land early on after sending spies to scout it out, they chose fear over faith. They said the giants were too big. The walls are too tall. The risk is too high. And so, that moment closed. God told them they would not enter the land. Not because he stopped loving them, but they weren't ready to receive what was promised. And so they walked, not in circles, but in a slow, sacred spiral, learning, failing, learning again. The landscape itself became part of their formation. There were places where they pitched camp for years. There were oases and battles, droughts and victories. Places like Kadesh Barnea, where major decisions were made, and Mount Hor, where Aaron, Moses' brother and the first high priest, died and was buried. Time moved differently in the wilderness. The calendar revolved around festivals: Passover, the Feast of Booths, the Day of Atonement. Moments to stop, reflect, and remember. The people grew older. The children grew taller. And slowly, a shift occurred. This was no longer just about escaping Egypt. It was about becoming a people who could thrive in a new land. A land that would demand courage, justice, compassion, obedience. And to live that way, they needed to be formed differently. So God gave them laws, not just commands, but culture, ways of treating the poor, ways of honoring the land, ways of remembering their story. It was all training, freedom training, because freedom is not just the absence of chains. It is the presence of wisdom. It is self-governance. It is a responsibility. And God was preparing them to live not as survivors, but as stewards. In these years, leadership was also tested. We already know Moses faltered. Aaron died, and a new leader began to rise, Joshua. Joshua had been there since Egypt. He was one of the 12 spies, one of only 2 who believed. He watched. He learned. And now, he was ready. God began to shift the people's focus from what had been to what was next. And Moses, nearing the end of his life, gathered them once more. He retold the story. He recited the laws. He reminded them, again and again, remember, 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 because memory would be their anchor in the new land. Memory would protect them from arrogance, from apathy, from forgetting the source of their strength. He reminded them of how far they'd come, of the miracles, of the failures, of the mercy, and he charged them to stay faithful, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. Near the end of the journey, they stood at the edge of the Jordan River. The promised land was just across the water. They could see it. Green hills, cities, a future, and yet Moses would not cross with them. He climbed Mount Nebo, overlooking the land, and there he died. His eyes are full of vision. His heart is full of hope. It is one of the quietest, most tender endings in all of Scripture. A leader who walked with the people for decades, who bore their complaints, interceded for their mistakes, and delivered them to the threshold of destiny, and then let them go. Joshua took up the mantle, and the people crossed the river. But the memory of Moses and of the wilderness would walk with them forever, because what happened in those 40 years wasn't delayed. It was discipleship. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. And the same might be true for us. The seasons of wandering, of waiting, of wondering why things take so long, maybe they are not detours. Maybe they are the path. Maybe something inside us needs time to let go of fear, to build resilience, to hear the voice of God more clearly. Maybe we too are being shaped into someone who can handle the promises we've been given. And maybe, just maybe, 40 years is not too long, not when eternity is the goal. Imagine being one of those children, now grown. You remember sand in your shoes, the hush of the camp at night, the sound of elders telling stories beside the fire. You remember Moses not just as a leader, but as a presence, firm, steady, compassionate. You remember the way he would climb the mountain and return glowing with something you couldn't name, but knew was sacred. You remember the long walks, the way the stars looked like diamonds flung across the sky. You remember how everything you needed came not early, not late, but just in time. And maybe you didn't understand it then, but you do now. You were being taught to trust. This journey was not just about them. It's about you and me and everyone who's ever asked, why is this taking so long? Or, when will I get there? The wilderness strips us, not to break us, but to ready us. It removes our illusions. It teaches us what matters. And it whispers truths we can't hear in louder seasons. The truth that waiting is not wasting. That formation is often invisible. That slowness is not weakness. God was not just trying to get the people to a land. He was trying to get them to a place in their hearts, place of readiness, of faith, of inner freedom. And so, when the time finally came to cross the Jordan, they weren't just stepping into a new place. They were stepping into a new identity. They were no longer a rescued people. They were a ready people. And readiness takes time. So maybe, the next time you find yourself in a long season of wandering, remember, you're not off track. You're on holy ground. Let the journey continue in your own soul, in the quiet places no one sees. Know that your waiting is not empty. Your desert is not barren. It is filled with presence, with promise, and with purpose, just like theirs was. And so, the story comes to rest not with a loud finish, but with a quiet crossing. The people of Israel, once slaves, now stand in the land that was promised. But this story isn't really about geography. It's about becoming, about learning how to walk, not just out of Egypt, but into freedom. Learning how to wait, how to trust, how to follow even when the path isn't clear. For 40 years, they learned that the journey was just as important as the destination. And maybe that's true for you too. Maybe you're walking through your own wilderness right now. Maybe your pace feels slow. Maybe the ground feels dry and the road ahead uncertain. But what if this isn't punishment? What if it's preparation? What if something deep within you is being reshaped silently, steadily? Because deserts have always been places where transformation happens. Out there, there's no noise to drown things out, just stillness. And in that stillness, we begin to hear. We hear our fears, our longings, our questions. And, if we listen longer, we might also hear a whisper reminding us that we are not alone, that the cloud still guides, that the fire still burns, that provision still comes, daily, gently, faithfully. So if tonight you're lying awake, wondering when things will change, or if you're exhausted from walking and waiting, let this ancient story settle your heart. The journey is not wasted. The time is not lost. You are becoming, just as they did. A people once scattered became a nation. A leader once unsure became a prophet. A group once enslaved became free. And through it all, God remained, present in the wilderness, present in the questions, present in the becoming. So breathe deep, close your eyes. Let this journey carry you into rest. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are right on time. And as you drift off to sleep tonight, remember, you're walking through something sacred. You may not see it now, but something sacred is happening in the quiet, in the pauses between steps, in the questions you're still carrying. Transformation doesn't always come with a loud declaration. Sometimes it arrives like manna quiet, surprising, just enough. It arrives in the strength you find to keep going one more day, in the wisdom you gain from waiting, in the softening of your heart toward others who are wandering too. Maybe your wilderness isn't 40 years. Maybe it's a long week, a difficult season, a place where you're still looking for direction, for answers. And that's okay, because the God who walked with them walks with you. The same presence that hovered over the tabernacle still hovers over you, protecting, providing, patiently shaping. You don't have to rush. You don't have to have it all figured out. You only have to keep walking, softly, steadily, sincerely. So tonight, let yourself rest in that. You are not on the outside of the story. You are in the middle of something beautiful. Keep listening, keep trusting, and let grace be your guide. You're not just falling asleep, you're being renewed. And that, too, is a kind of miracle. Thank you for spending this quiet time with me. If this journey helped you find a little more peace tonight, I'd be honored if you liked the video and subscribed. And if you'd like, tell me in the comments what moment spoke to you the most. Until next time, sleep well and keep walking gently.